All right, so welcome everyone to Taking the Mystery Out of Mastery Paths. It is an honor to be with you today, and I hope that you walk away from this session ready to implement something new in your course. This presentation is interactive, so please open your Poll Everywhere app, have your phone handy or another tab open to respond to certain questions. And as you see at the top right-hand corner of this slide, that is my Poll Everywhere address. If you have the app, you simply need to put in Mika D. My name is Mika Davis, and I am an ITC and ITS Learning Technology. I work in a collaborative unit with the Teaching Innovation Office called the Center for Learning Innovation. And in a normal world, we live at 1100 West Market. So before we begin, I want to thank Carla Wilson for co-hosting with me this afternoon. Carla is an ITC, hey Carla, in the School of Ed, and there will be moments when I pause and ask for responses using Poll Everywhere. But you may also put your question in the chat box at any time, and Carla will ensure that I answer them. So there are 5 goals for this session, and I'm not going to do a deep dive into adaptive learning, but I will provide some background as it is necessary to understand why mastery paths should be an integral part of your course design. For those of you new to Canvas and mastery paths, the hope is that you will leave the session in a comfortable space to begin implementing it in your classroom. I truly want this to work for our students, so we'll discuss some best practices to help you along the mastery path journey. And of course, with most technology, there are some tricks to working through the sticky parts, and we'll cover those considerations. And lastly, we'll discuss the limitations of mastery paths and what's next as we move on to the future. And I just want to get a feel for today's group. Please let me know if you are familiar with the term adaptive learning. Awesome. Great. So I feel like I might be preaching to the choir here, but we're going to get through it for those of you who are not yet familiar with adaptive learning. So for those of you who are familiar with adaptive learning, how would you define it as an educational method? Absolutely. Adaptive learning is definitely about personalizing education for students by making it student-centered, by responding to their pace. A lot of what you're going to see in Mastery Paths is that it is self-paced for the most part, and we'll talk about those parts of Mastery Paths that should have a due date and those that should not. Absolutely, we do want to keep UDL in mind. For us to be effective with adaptive learning, especially with the size classes that we have, we definitely do need to take advantage of technology. So adaptive learning is all the things you contributed, as well as what you see on the screen. You do it in your classroom, in a face-to-face classroom all the time, when you shift the lesson flow to accommodate student questions. You do it when you reference current events, or when you involve student passions, or simply when you change activities in the moment when a student is having trouble. All of this is adaptive learning. But responding to the exact needs of multiple learners at a single time is hard to manage, which is why digital software is so vital. So let's take a look at how adaptive learning and mastery paths allow us to meet the needs of all learners. What is adaptive learning? Adaptive learning is a technique that allows for a differentiated and personalized path to engage each student. Using data from assessments, student feedback, and instructor adjustments, Various media is used to deliver new learning material to students who have achieved mastery and remediation to those who have not. Adaptive learning shows our students that we respect their prior knowledge, are able to respond to their learning needs, and are working to reduce gaps in their understanding. There are some downsides. Adaptive learning can be costly and time-consuming to implement, but it also contributes to a greater level of academic success for more students in a cost-efficient manner, while also reducing cheating because the content can vary for each student. The bottom line is that adaptive learning provides tailored support and guidance for all students. Every learner is unique. Mastery paths allow you to empower students to reach their full potential. So, in a nutshell, Mastery Paths is a gateway software to customizing learning for each student. So I use the word gateway because Mastery Paths is what I'd like to call adaptive learning light. Other companies such as Smart Sparrow and Newton use technology that adapts to students' proficiency level with each interaction. But Mastery Paths is based on one interaction, which is why it serves as a great introduction to the technology before you dive into something that's a bit more challenging to create. Okay. There was a question about the Poll Everywhere app, and it's available on any device. So if you just go into your App Store or Google Play, you can download the app. Okay, so at the end of this workshop, I will provide a URL so you may view a mastery path from the student perspective. The URL will take you to a Canvas course where you'll have the option to try a mastery path based on your interest. Of course, you may try all three. Once you're in the course, take the pretest, then compare the activities you were assigned with other people that you may know in this workshop. So depending on how you answer the pretest, you may be taken on 3 different paths. So that may differ from a colleague of yours. So mastery paths can be used for a variety of different purposes, and that is what I want you to keep in mind as we progress. As you see on the screen, we have 3 different students. Mastery path tools allow us to focus on the needs of all students, not just those who need remediation. Mastery paths is not only about student performance, but also about student choice in activities. So I'm going to say that again because voice and choice is so important in education. Mastery paths is not only about student performance, but also about student choice in activities. So there are 4 steps on your road to creating a mastery path. And I want to warn you that despite there being only 4 steps, creation can be confusing. But don't worry, there are an abundance of people who will guide you through the creation process. Just know that I, Amy Brown, and the TIO, as well as your ITC, we're all here for you. So the great thing about Mastery Paths is that it is available in every course, but it is not automatically turned on. And you have to do that by going under feature options. You do that by going into your course, going to settings, which is on the bottom left-hand side in white. And then when you click there, look at the top tabs. There will be one for feature options. Once you get there, just turn on the mastery path. It's not turned on by default, and you must do it in every single class. If you cross-list a class and you cross-list whichever class that you make the parent class, just turn mastery paths on for that particular course, and it will be set for you. So step 2 is that you must create a clear route for how the path must function. And the great thing about step 2 is that you develop a plan in a way in which you best process information. It can be on whiteboards, Post-its, mind mapping tools, or even project management tools such as Trello or Microsoft Planner. They all work great. However, the most important aspect of step 2 is not where you plan your path, but where you start. And that's what backward design, meaning that you have to set your learning goals first. So now that you know to start with the end in mind, let's talk about the process of how to get there. Because we begin with backward design, we have to decide on the culminating project. It doesn't matter if your course is rich in project-based learning or if exams are just your thing. Just consider what students need to know to be successful upon completion of the unit. Then you develop your pretest, and that needs to be based on what students should know to be successful on the culminating assignment. From there, you can place as many activities as you like within a path, but you are limited to only 3 paths. You can have 2, but you can have no more than 3. Mastery paths also allow for choice in that you can give students an and/or option. So take a look at the differences here. Our high flyers are on path 1, which means that they can do one or the other, whereas our middle of the road students must do both. And then we have those who need a little bit more love, and they must complete all 3 assignments before moving on. The name of the session is Mika D, M-I-K-A-D. Okay. So upon completion of the designated activities, you may send the high flyers to the final project, while those students who are in paths 2 and 3 may take another assessment, or you can just send everyone to the final project. So I'm going to take a break for questions at this point to clarify anything you need. You may drop them in the chat box, or you're happy to drop them here. You can put, okay, so we're going to talk about the modules. When we get to creating that mastery path, you're going to see that everything must be created within a module, but you can put as many resources as you want in a mastery path. And one of the best practices that I'll cover a little bit later is about not being too fancy with it at the beginning, just to, make your first path very straight and to the point. And then as you get more comfortable with it, then you can put an infinite number of projects. Yes, you can do an escape room type project. Um, I also have a workshop on a digital breakout. If you're interested, just send me an email, and that's all done with Google Tools.
Mika, we have a couple of questions in the chat. One is, do the students know they are on a variety of paths?
So yes, but students are not able to identify if Carla is on path 1 and I'm on path 2. So yes, they know that everything is a mastery path, but their privacy is 100% secure and where they fall.
So next is, are the overall learning goals for the class the same for the different paths, or does each path have a different goal?
So you are creating a mastery path for one learning goal. So it's just a matter of how am I going to ensure that all 50 of my students can achieve that goal, and the mastery path will provide those resources so they have mastered the content. So one goal per mastery path. And let's see what we have here. Where will we find examples that we can click through? At the end of this unit, I will give you a URL where you can drop into a Canvas course I created with 3 different mastery paths that you can try out. On the screen, no, people may not change their path along the way. They're going to, depending on how they respond on the pretest, they are going to be on a path that will eventually get them to that final project.
Can this be used with things like Pearson, MyLab?
Yes, absolutely. As long as you include those activities along the path, you can include anything that works in Canvas. How much time does it take to create a mastery path? The first time, it's going to be tricky. You will mess up. I messed up. We've all messed up. So it's now I'm to the point where as long as I have all of my resources, the resource creation is what takes the bulk of time. Putting the mastery path together takes 5 minutes, but you have to create those resources. And can people self-identify for the path? Meaning if they have a choice, if not, please just let me know. But I will tell you that Dr. Deanne Brooks, she used it in her class, and she allowed students to choose a path based on the career path that they wanted to go in. So if they wanted to, and I'm probably getting these wrong, but as an example, if they wanted to go into physical therapy or occupational therapy, then they could choose, they would answer a question, and then they would get a path that would have everything about OT or everything about PT. The email tool. So someone asked about an escape room, and I do have another workshop on a digital breakout using Google tools, and you are welcome to email me, or I can just direct you to that and we can have a consultation. Is it naive to say we are creating 3 different classes with one outcome? No, it's not. Nope, you have all the resources. So if you have 15 resources that you feel will get your students to that final outcome, you may have your high flyers who may only need to do 2 of the activities, whereas your students who perform poorly on the initial pretest, which you'll find out a little bit more in a second, they may need to do all, say, 8 activities. Does the pretest determine which path the student goes on, or do they get to choose their path? The pretest determines the path. Did I catch them all? I think I got them all. All right. All right, so step 3 is super important. You must create everything within a module. And if you're not already doing that, then you're at a disservice. We don't want to go under assignments and then create an assignment. We don't want to jump to discussions and then create something there, or go to the quizzes tab and create a quiz. We want to create everything in a module. And that's the beauty of modules. Everything you pretty much need is going to be there. And if you don't create everything in a module, then everything is just going to find yourself in quite the kerfuffle. So the step 4 is super important, and I cannot emphasize this enough. You must assign to mastery path and not the default, which is everyone. So if you look at that GIF that's on the screen, we know that whenever we are in an assignment, it is just everyone, or perhaps we're just assigning to one single student. Everything must be assigned to the mastery path. And then Canvas will work the magic to ensure that if someone is on path 1, meaning they scored, that's our high flyer group, they scored a 95, then they're only going to get those activities for the high flyer group. Always double check the assignment feature before you release the path to your students. So I mentioned that everything must be created within a module, and the content that can be created for the paths are the ones you see on the screen. You can use assignments, discussions, content pages, those activities you have from your publisher. I didn't put that on the screen. You can also use quizzes and Canvas Studio. So like the woman on the screen, I encourage you and I urge you to map out your path ahead of time. If you consult with us in the TIO, then we typically use a whiteboard so you can visualize it. If you consult with me virtually, we'll get it done in a similar fashion using an application such as Google Jamboard. And I find that Post-its and drawing a chart on a whiteboard really help you visualize the overall module. So just a quick note about pages before we move on. There is not an assign to for a Canvas page, but if you check closely, there is a checkbox once you enable Mastery Paths. Be mindful that when you create a Canvas page for your Mastery Path, it will show up under assignments. Don't freak out, it's not a big deal, it's just the way the Canvas is built. So this is another reason why it is so important to create the page within a module. So now that you know the basics, I just want to check in with everyone. And you can just click on the column where you fall. It's a lot, I know. And so the first time you create a mastery path, there hasn't been one instructor who hasn't come to the TIO for help. And we fully expect that you work with us the first time, or you find colleagues who have used it in the past. I'm not going to put anyone's name out there, but if you email me, I'm going to contact those other instructors who have used mastery paths over the past year, and I'll ask if they're willing to help you. Perhaps we can put something on the TIO website that gives their name so you can connect with a colleague in your department. All right, for those of you on B and C, let's see if we can get you over to A. So I strongly encourage you to set up requirements in your Mastery Path module. If you're not sure on how to do this, myself or your ITCs are happy to help you do this, but this really ensures that students go through things in order and do not bounce around. Definitely work your prerequisites in Canvas. If you do not have an assignment submission under your Mastery Path, consider using Mark as Done as an option. That way, even if they are set to do 5 assignments, if you want them to do it in a particular order, it can be done. You just have to work your prerequisites and your requirements. So now we're to the fun part. You get to set up your path. The biggest suggestion I can give you here is to ensure that the pretest is not one that you have to grade. So when you are setting up your mastery path, you're going to go into the pretest, and then you'll notice that you'll have 3 tabs. You'll click on the one that says mastery path, and it's really just a matter of dragging the resources to the correct path. So again, when you do have that pretest, make sure that is something you do not have to grade, but of course this is at your discretion. But just know that it negates the self-paced aspect of the mastery path. And just as someone stated earlier, that adaptive learning is really at that student's own pace. So the student view is so important. So once you set up the path, use the student view to ensure that all the things are hidden with the exception of the pretest. This should be available to everyone. If you get to this point and more than the pretest is available, it's because you failed to designate a learning resource as a mastery path. So you just have to go back to that resource, and as I stated earlier, make sure that you take the default of everyone out and you assign each resource to a mastery path. All right, so speaking of student view, please do not publish your module until you are 100% certain that it is set up correctly. The best advice that I can give you here is just get another pair of eyes on your module. Give me a call or just ask a colleague or your ITC for assistance. So I get this question a lot. How can you tell which student is on which path? And Canvas has made this very simple. You can check the path each student is on by viewing the initial pretest. This is where you'll find the breakdown, as well as see how each student scored. Excuse me. When you click the hyperlink to view the students, you just click the hyperlink and then you can see the students who are assigned to the particular path. And you can go even further. You can quickly view more information by clicking a breakdown link by selecting the student's name, and you can view the activities that they have completed within that mastery path. You're also able to identify if they scored up, down, or the same by those icons that you see on the screen. I will be sharing this presentation with you, and you can get more information about identifying if students are getting better or worse by clicking that picture that says click here. And that will take you to a Canvas guide that tells you a little bit more about this part of the mastery path. So before we move on, I'm going to pause for any questions that you may have. This time we can just place them in the chat. Carla, anything?
We have a question. In the past, Canvas Student View wouldn't show me the assignments and other items until I published them. How can I see what the student sees without publishing?
You can go into, you can look at it as a test student. So I'm trying to figure out, in the past, Canvas Student View won't show me assignments. No, you should still be able to see it before you publish it for students when you're looking at it through the student view. If that could just be a glitch. It may have just been one of those things. I would just refresh the screen and try again. If we wanted students to create one of these for their students, is that possible? Only users who have a teacher role within Canvas are able to create a mastery path. But if you have students who are student teaching, and I know Guilford County Schools uses Canvas, then they should be able to get those rights and privileges. And again, they just have to turn it on. All right, I'm going to continue. So moving on to best practices, the first one is to focus quizzes around specific topics or learning objectives. So this will ensure that remediation is aligned with those specific topics. Number two, make sure you plan carefully to ensure students can proceed through the module and reach that learning outcome. The goal here is for their academic success. We don't want students to be in a place where they do not have the tools they need to reach that final assignment. And third, you want students to improve their performance multiple times rather than have one opportunity to showcase their knowledge. So make sure you give them assessments in which they have the opportunity to improve as opposed to striking out. So focus more on formative. The summative assessment should really be that final project or assignment. So just a few considerations, because technology at times does not play pretty or play nice. So the first one, and I haven't seen this in a while, if you or your student get an error message when next is clicked, just refresh the screen. But again, I haven't seen that in over a year, but it has happened. I just want you to be aware. Number two, I recommend that the only assignments that have a due date are the pretest and the final project. Remember, mastery paths work better when they are self-paced. Three, remember that any pages you create will show up under assignments. Next, on any test, allow multiple attempts or you will constantly have to moderate the quiz. That again removes the self-paced aspect because students are waiting on you to reopen the quiz for them. Number five, make sure you are using either a 100-point scale for all things or just total points for course, not both. And then lastly, Canvas Studio will work as part of the mastery path. Just make sure you include it in the module. And if you get stuck, just contact any ITC. We're happy to help you. So I've said a lot about mastery paths, but it's more important for you to hear from our students. But before we do, let me just take a look at this question. Is it advisable to offer suggested dates or deadlines for longer paths? Okay, I worry about students who wait until the final project is due. Okay, so I recommend that you have a due date for the pretest so they can get started, and then a date for the final project. That way, if you open the path on October 1st, but they need to be done by the 20th, they have all that time to get it done. Just don't put dates on every single thing that you do. Let's see. Will the test view show all three mastery paths, or how does that work? I've had a lot of limitations with the student view when my class is broken into groups and being able to see what the student sees. If you go in and through the student view and you take the pretest multiple times, you're going to see all three mastery paths. But if you answer with the designated amount of points necessary for only one path, that's what you're going to see at the time. So what I do when I'm testing my path is I will purposely fail to make sure that I am on the third path for the student who needs all of the resources, and then I'll do it 2 more times to make sure that I end up as that middle of the road student or as the high flyer. Just continue to reset your student view so you can get a clear picture. And going back to considerations, equivalent grading. So equivalent grading, we have, like for instance, in my courses, I use a 100-point scale or 100% for assignments, and then I average everything up based on how it's weighted. But then we have instructors who say, you know, throughout the semester, you need to earn 500 points. So just make sure that your assignments either are on that 100-point scale or you're adding everything up that ends up to the 500 points for all the activities. You're welcome.
We have another question. Would you say that setting up Mastery Pass is a good way to separate out maybe an English as a second language course, which is very writing intensive?
I think it could, depending based on where your students land. I've seen Mastery Paths work for every content area as well as every possible student need. I've seen instructors use it in K-12 as well as in higher ed, and it seems to work beautifully. It's really in the setup, and we are happy to guide you. Just feel free to set up a consultation with myself or any ITC. Okay, Jennifer says you could essentially have 3 or 4 mastery paths set through the semester, like for different learning objectives. For example, working for 3 weeks will be a mastery path set for 1, and the next 3 weeks will be a mastery path set for 2. Yes, if I'm reading it correctly, let's say you have your student learning outcomes and, you know, one is to, like outcome 1, you're going to set up a mastery path for that first outcome. And then you move to outcome 2, which may be weeks 3 through 6 of your course. And then that particular mastery path is going to be for learning outcome 2. Jennifer, am I reading this correctly? Awesome. Okay. All right, so I really want you to see how students feel about Mastery Paths. And before I begin, I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Deanne Brooks, who worked with us to secure this footage from her fall 2019 course.
The Canvas Mastery Path videos were a great way for me to assess my knowledge and see where I stand and understand what I need to improve on to get better in the class and improve my test grades.
The mastery paths that were utilized in Kin 370 really helped me prepare for the exam. Personally, I feel like they gave me a great way to review the material in chronological order while giving me the resources that were necessary for the exam. So if I got a question wrong, there were resources that directed me where I could find the correct answer. So overall, I really enjoyed the mastery paths, and I wish more courses used them.
To be able to see gaps in my knowledge of the material, so that way I knew exactly where to go back and study. But going forward, I think that teachers should use this in their class, and it's definitely a tool that should be utilized.
Okay, so for me, I really like the Mastery Pass. I thought they helped a lot in this class. They helped me learn some of the material that I might not have gotten from the video lecture or the transcript. They helped me review for the test and also just refresh on the material that I may not have looked at in a while.
When we answered the questions and we hit submit on it and we got it wrong, it told us where to go look when we got it wrong. But that helped me go back and learn that material that I thought I knew.
Okay, so as you can see, students really appreciated this. And it's hard to get students to give a testimonial. And almost every student in that class did one. I just gathered a few. But if you want to see it, I talked to Deanne to see if she'd open that up to you. But I am also in the process of trying to create a longer video if you are interested in seeing all of the student testimonials from that kinesiology course.
So Mika, we had a couple of questions come through. Do you suggest 3-pass? Can it work well with 2-pass if you're using it like a choice board?
Absolutely. So mastery paths, they allow you up to 3-pass. You don't have to use them all.
And then what if you had mostly assignments that require manual grading and quite a lot of them? Can you still use good mastery path structure?
You can, but I don't see anything wrong with manual grading unless it is the pretest. So otherwise, definitely you can put as many manually graded assignments in as you need. It's just a matter of how much you can handle.
And the last question we have right now is this used for online classes only or for hybrid and face-to-face as well?
All three. So Deanne's class was face-to-face. I teach a course at Guilford College, which is hybrid, and I've used it there. And of course, this could be worked beautifully online. Okay, so there are some limitations. At the top of this workshop, I mentioned that Mastery Paths is a gateway application to adaptive learning. UNCG is currently investigating options that will provide the customized path students, that will provide that customized path for students as opposed to just 3 overall options. So one thing I want everyone to know is that this was a provost priority before the pandemic. So just hang tight. We had to adjust our focus naturally, but just know that a specialized application is coming. I couldn't tell you when. We're just trying to adjust to this new normal. But start with Mastery Paths and stay tuned for news coming out of the Teaching Innovation Office and ITS Learning Technology, as I know that at some point we will get something that will adjust with each student interaction. And then I'm going to leave you all with a giant kiss. Please do not try to add the wow factor when you create your first path. Keep your design as simple as possible. You'll learn more and more about Mastery Paths tools as you continue to use it. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending this session on Canvas Mastery Paths. I also want to make you aware that ITS Learning Technology holds a Friday feature session at 10 a.m. and we will continue that through the end of July, with the exception of this week and July 3rd. I also encourage you to check the UNCG workshop page and search the keyword ADAPT to discover more learning opportunities that are coming from a variety of people, mainly the ITCs at UNCG. And we're just really trying to get you prepared for teaching in today's world. What questions do you have? All right. Yay. Well, thanks, Jennifer. It can be tied to learning mastery in the gradebook. You're welcome. Yes, you can build anything in the development course and you can just transfer it over to your Banner Connected course. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Can I give some examples of learning objectives that you have seen? Okay. Oh, gosh. Lynn, they work well with anything. I cannot think of one particular objective, but anything that you can imagine a mastery path has worked well with. And I will tell you, just personally, I have a first grader who is not here because it's quiet. And I've worked with his teacher to create a mastery path, and they were just working on understanding their verbs and nouns, and it worked well for 7-year-olds. So I cannot imagine anything that does, that if it works well for 7-year-olds, it's going to work well for 77-year-olds. So it can work for anything. I don't, Myra, but we can talk about that later. Just send me an email.
There's a question, have you seen Mastery Paths as more suitable to some subject matter over others?
No, I've seen it work well for every subject matter. I think the largest presentation on Mastery Paths I've seen was at InstructureCon, which is the Canvas conference, and there were instructors from K through 16 and every grade level, and everyone, when they spoke about their personal testimonials, they have all said that it just worked well for, if it was a liberal arts course to something with chemistry, it can be for anything, whether it's in any STEAM course, anything you can imagine. It just seems to work really well because it's about ensuring that students are getting what they need so they can master the content. My cool avatars. If you're looking at the one that says Talk Soon, that is just an app called Bitmoji. You can download it on your phone, and there is a Chrome extension which allows you to include it in your email, and you can copy and paste them into anything. And anything else I pretty much just got from Jiffy or Giphy. I'm not going to debate how it's pronounced. All right, so just a final note, these are all the ways that you can reach me and how to access this presentation. You will also find this presentation on the Adapt 2020 Canvas site in about 20 minutes. And if you've yet to join this course, the Canvas course for Adapt 2020, please do so. So just know that these are strange times and there are a lot of new to you tools out there. Through professional development, ITS learning technology, and ITCs, you will be bombarded with many options this summer, and we are all here to help you work through this new normal. It has been a pleasure, everyone. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Thanks, Carla. Jennifer, it's great to see you. Jennifer Lingle.
Mika, I was having flashbacks to our GCS days, and remembering this. So it's good to see it coming through. And I did it with 8th grade math students. So yes, it can get done all over contents. So
fantastic. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I've seen you throughout the conference. It's nice to kind of see.
Yes, yeah. And I intend to use it with our education undergrads in their I am their internship course. So we do a lot. And I think this will be really helpful in separating out the things that need to get done and those who fly, who are just, as you would say, high flyers. So thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.